So, it finally happened. Damian Lillard has officially requested a trade from the Portland Trail Blazers. News broke yesterday of this, and immediately, Damian Lillard shut down all speculation with like 27 other teams. His preferred destination is Miami Heat, as if anybody couldn't guess. But there has been some talks around the Brooklyn Nets and San Antonio Spurs, which could be interesting. But it's been a long time coming. For years, we knew this would eventually happen. The Blazers have done a poor job of putting quality or more than quality players around Damian Lillard, constantly throwing money at players who don't deserve it, constant draft mistakes, and forcing things that simply don't work. Basically, it's been malpractice in that Blazers organization, and now they're reaping the consequences of that. Dame has been the franchise guy since Aldridge left. He's had a crazy amount of memories, he's been filling seats in that arena, and for some, he's been the only reason as to why they buy tickets. But with this move, the Blazers can finally go into a rebuild, which is something that they should have done a long time ago. With lucking out into that 3rd overall pick, the writing was on the wall, and you can move forward with the hope that Scoot Henderson will be your next franchise cornerstone. The 6'2" guard out of the G League Ignite is just oozing with potential. An insane 7-foot wingspan, super crazy athletics, and just a mean swagger behind him. I'd honestly be surprised if he doesn't live up to the hype. Then there's Anthony Simons, who's a scorcher from deep, and is someone who I believe will excel in a bigger role. He's going to put the league on notice, and Anthony Simons is going to be in the same talks as probably guys like Zach LaVine and Anthony Edwards, and you might think that's crazy. I don't believe so. And then you have Shaedon Sharpe, the crazy leaper who went on a surge late last season that has a ton of people ready to see what he can do next season. That right there is your core, and they have a plethora of other assets, plus whatever they get back for Damian Lillard. It's going to be pretty fun to watch the Portland Trail Blazers next season, and I'm going to be very excited for their future. But this video is talking about Dame and what he's going to do next. To me, I believe there are 3 legit candidates to get Damian Lillard. So, let's break it down. The first candidate is obvious. It's the Miami Heat. Damian Lillard has a great connection with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, and considering how last season went for them, I think this would be Dame's best shot at winning a championship. The Heat have constantly shown the ability to contend with all of the top dogs in the Eastern Conference, despite whoever's on their roster. You add Dame to that, and things get that much scarier. An offer for Dame would have to start with Tyler Hero. They don't need him on the Portland Trail Blazers, but he can definitely be rerouted to a 3rd team. You add Duncan Robinson's contract to that for money's sake. You got Jaime Jaquez, who you just drafted in this year's NBA draft. There's Nikola Jovic. You have multiple 1st-round picks that you can give, as well as pick swaps. There may be some issues with depth after this trade, but the Heat have shown time and time again their ability to replenish it for cheap. There's also that $9 million trade exception that they just made with the Victor Oladipo trade. And maybe the Portland Trail Blazers could ask them to take back Jusuf Nurkic in exchange for, say, Kyle Lowry's contract. And Jusuf Nurkic could be a decent backup big for you guys. There's avenues for the Heat to get Dame. The Heat are going to be aggressive, especially after missing out on Bradley Beal. The Heat have had multiple opportunities at winning a championship. They've been to the finals 2 times in the last 5 years, and time again, they fall just short due to the lack of talent on that team. You just lost out on Gabe Vincent and Max Strus this free agency, and the time is now to be aggressive. Now, I'm not saying that they will have the best offer out there. They just have to be the most aggressive and show the biggest pursuit. And I think Pat Riley and company will do so. The next team I want to talk about is the Brooklyn Nets. This one right here is a little more interesting. The Nets are kind of like a middle of the pack team where they aren't really contenders, but they are a lot better than a lottery team. Last season, they traded Kevin Durant for Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, and as of right now, those 2 are your franchise cornerstone pieces. For Mikal, he has turned into a star with legit #1 option ability, and that could entice Dame to play alongside him. There's Nicholas Claxton, who took a huge leap in his game last season. He's a legit defensive player of the year candidate year in and year out, and is someone who's a double-double machine. Those 3 are your core pieces, but for me, I believe a Dame move would split up that former Suns duo. A trade for me looks like giving up Cam Johnson, Cam Thomas, Dariq Whitehead, Noah Conley, those picks from the Suns you got in the Kevin Durant trade, and some pick swaps. And then probably a veteran for the Portland Trail Blazers that they could use to get even more assets, someone like a Royce O'Neal or a Dorian Finney-Smith. And the bigger question is, would a big 3 of Dame, Mikal Bridges, and Nicholas Claxton really contend in the Eastern Conference? You can say maybe, but I just don't know. There's of course Ben Simmons, who's going to be coming back from injury, and maybe he can return to even half of what he used to be. This move would be one really to just entice the fans. After having James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Kyrie Irving, you don't want to go into a full rebuild just 2 years later, and trading for Dame will fill seats, and it gives you somewhat of a shot at making some noise in that Eastern Conference. And then there's the San Antonio Spurs. Now, I don't know how legit this is, but there have been some rumblings that Dame would welcome a trade to the Spurs. They can give by far the best package for Dame, considering the plethora of young players they have, as well as the picks. And they can still have a formidable core around Damian Lillard after making a trade. Something involving Keldon Johnson, Malachi Branham, and some picks should be more than enough to get for Damian Lillard. That would still leave you with, of course, Victor Wembanyama, who just took first overall, Devin Vassell, Jeremy Sohan, you have Trey Jones, who just resigned, as well as other assets. But the biggest thing about this is that you can fiddle around this year, have Victor and other players grow. Damian Lillard will be a year older, but the following offseason, that 2024 free agency is going to be big, and they're going to have a lot of cap space to throw at a lot of free agents. Just imagine adding a Pascal Siakam to this team. Just imagine if Jaylen Brown doesn't sign that extension, and what could happen out of that. Of course, if you make this trade, I'd imagine that Greg Popovich is going to be coaching for a couple more seasons at least. You add all that together, and that's some real fire out that Western Conference. But I don't know if that's going to happen, so oh well. Either way, Dame's time in Portland looks to be over. We'll see what's next for him, and just how much his potential move will shake up the league.